Welcome to the Joy of Sunflowers podcast. We release podcasts here, in part and in full, on the Joy of Sunflowers website. The Joy of Sunflowers podcast is about sisterhood through infertility and pregnancy loss. We cover a range of topics including fertility, pregnancy after loss, and so much more. I speak with a range of people, including wellness professionals, medical experts, and beautiful mamas. The aim of this podcast is to bring you information and experiences that will validate and equip you for whatever season you find yourself in right now. Welcome, Riannah. Thank you so much for joining us. And please tell us about yourself.
Well, my name's Riannah. I am a mum to two young boys. My boys are Spencer and Albie. They're 5 and 3, so busy with two. I work now as a hypnotherapist, a Reiki practitioner, and in the healing space with women who are going through all different types of things in life. Yeah, I'm also actually I always forget this part because it's so new, but I'm also a author. So I've written a book about my journey, and it's called The She Within, and I'm just in the editing stages of my second book, and it's around healing for pregnancy.
Wonderful. And The She Within will be linked below this video, so people can have a look at that if they want to have a look.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So when it comes to women who have gone through trauma, and obviously loss is a big trauma, I'm guessing you do sort of have a lot of patients that have gone through those sorts of things. And so what kind of practices do you do with them?
Definitely. So, as you said, I work with a lot of women who have experienced trauma, and that includes, pregnancy loss, but it also involves, all types of trauma. So, in emotional, physical, sexual trauma. Generally, with women, when they come to me, we start by just unpicking, firstly, by talking about what experience they have come to in their life. And often just by talking about it with someone in a safe space, that can begin the healing process already. So I provide women with the space just to be able to talk about it with no judgment, so they're able to just get everything out. Sometimes we can talk to friends and family, but sometimes we sort of hold back a little bit in fear that either we'll be judged or something else. So we start with that, and then with I often will work with women around the emotions that they feel in regards to what they've experienced in the past. So particularly with trauma, there's always a lot of sadness and grief, but there are other emotions that can often come up, and this happens with pregnancy loss as well. But these emotions can include embarrassment or shame, guilt. There's all these ones that many women will feel that they feel, why am I feeling this? So we work through and we talk about, and we will, through hypnosis, help clear energetically the emotions from the body. So that's how it starts.
It must be very full on to kind of just hear all these experiences sometimes, I'm sure, because obviously some women have gone through quite a lot, even through loss or through something else. When it comes to loss, I know a lot of women kind of get this numbness, like you don't know what you're feeling, you don't understand what you're feling. So I was just wondering, is there ways that you can kind of reach that? I mean, hypnotherapy, I've heard, can kind of help you connect. But yeah, what sort of practices would you sort of recommend when it comes to that kind of distancing, where you're not connecting and you don't know what you're feeling?
From my experience, personal, but also from working with other women who've experienced loss, the numbness often is almost like a coping mechanism. It's like we push the intense feelings of grief or sadness or whatever else the emotion is underneath, and we push it down to the point where we know it's there, but we just don't want to feel it because the intensity of it feels too much. And that's when the numbness comes up. It's almost like, swallow it down, swallow it down, swallow it down, and then just keep going on with life. So through hypnosis, there's many different ways that I help women do that. But firstly, a really beautiful way to do it is to identify where in the body the woman is experiencing, whatever emotion it is. And if you're not sure on the emotion, it doesn't really matter. If you can find, we often, if we're swallowing something down or holding in sadness or something, we'll often get, pain or discomfort somewhere. And, loss is very much, not always, but it's, the heart, we feel it, or we feel it in the womb if it's linked to a pregnancy. So connecting to the body is a really beautiful way to begin to, allow that emotion to come up. And when I get women to just explore their body just by, scanning the body and looking for where they feel something, often it would just start to come up. And it's like, oh, here comes all the sadness rushing up to the surface. They may not have known it was sadness, but there it is just coming up. And that's, it's quite a gentle way to start, because that sadness may or may not have been linked to the pregnancy loss. It may just be sadness in regards to something else, but it's just the start of allowing the emotions to begin to flow a bit more easily and a bit more naturally through the body.
Yeah, I know with my experience, I kind of had this numbness, and then I got angry.
Yeah.
And then my husband was just like, just be sad. Like, it's fine. Like, just cry. That's what you want to do. That's how you feel. Let it out, and it's fine. And I think, a lot of women are maybe scared or worried to kind of allow it to come out. Like, if I start crying, I'm never going to stop crying.
And that's very much how many women will describe it. It's like, I don't want to let that out, because if I start, when will I stop? But if you think of it this way, if you hold that in, one day it is going to come out, and it's going to come out when you least expect it. And it's just, we get to a point where we can't hold that anymore. So if you can be in a safe space to let it out, definitely. But there are many stages of grief, and anger is often one of them. So it is very natural to want to be angry as well.
Yeah, I've heard of some women where they go for a loss, they kind of push it to a side, and then they go for another loss, and then it kind of hits them both losses at once, because they didn't actually experience the first one, because they didn't allow themselves, or they didn't have the time, or life kind of took over. And so in that, they were kind of just stumped. It was so much worse than having experienced that one and then experience the next one. Definitely. I was lucky in that I kind of experienced the first one, but I think it's when you get to the second one, it's like, okay, I can kind of deal with this a little bit better, because I've done it, because I've gone through this process. But if you didn't do that, it can make it a lot harder, can't it?
Of course, because all of the emotions still sitting in your body, if you like to, energetically, it's all there, and it's all attached to the memories. And then if you're experiencing again, it's almost like it triggers you back into that first time you experienced it. And if you've got unprocessed, emotions, it'll all rush up, and it will come up much more strongly if you're experiencing it again. So it's really important to allow yourself, if you can, to feel the emotions to the full extent.
I've heard about Reiki, but I'm not actually familiar with the practices or sort of how it works. Is it sort of crystals, or how does Reiki work, and how do we use it?
So Reiki can involve crystals. It doesn't have to, though. Reiki is essentially the movement or the alignment of energy in the body. So, depending on beliefs and awareness, there's energy centers in our body, it is believed. And my belief is I work around the chakras. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but there's 7 main energy centers down the midline of the body. And Reiki, or what happens through life, is that these energy centers can get, blockages, or, stuck sort of energy, stale, sticky energy, however you like to think of it. For example, one of the main energy centers is around our heart. So it's not the actual blood and muscle of the heart, but it's just the energy that flows through, the body in that space. When we experience loss and we sort of lock it in there, the energy of the heart, again, just the energy, not the blood or anything else, doesn't flow smoothly, and it just sort of gets, stuck. It's still probably moving, but it's not moving freely. So with Reiki, it is a practice of me helping the body align the energy and open up all the energy centers so that the body is flowing freely again. Some people, when they experience Reiki, will feel the actual energy moving through the body. Others feel nothing at all and just fall asleep, because it's such a deeply, relaxing practice of connecting to the body. It doesn't matter if you're awake or asleep, it's the movement of the energy that's happening. So definitely with women who've experienced loss, firstly, from the women I've worked with, they say that it's beautiful in that they get to relax and they just get some time, obviously, to
I
themselves.
was going to say that sleeping bit. I'm like, that sounds great. That would be amazing right
And
now.
if you need that, then definitely do it, because you're getting the added bonus of the energy alignment, but you get rest time.
Just that bit of sleep. Oh yeah.
Definitely. And that's why I go, to be honest, a lot of the time. But a lot of the women who've experienced loss, that there's a lot of energy that's held around the womb and in the womb, space, in that lower part of our body. And it's like through the energy movement, you can actually clear, sort of that sadness or grief or anything else that you're feeling. You still have to process it through your mind and, through your heart. But the movement of energy can help it start to move, rather than just hold it tight in the body.
In terms of like issues, like fertility issues, have you had any successes like in healing, or maybe some things that have actually helped women kind of get to the point where they're getting that rainbow, or they're getting their first sort of pregnancy?
Definitely. So I have worked, and I still do work with women in the infertility space. Women who have nothing medically wrong with them, but have just not got pregnant or haven't got pregnant for the second time easily. So I've worked with a lot of women in that space, and there's a whole section in my new book coming that is written around that, around some of the things that women can explore when they're experiencing unexplained infertility. So some of the stuff that we work through, or I work through with women when they're in that space, is feminine or easeful way of life. Because a lot of the time, today we're all busy and we're all in a hustle. Women are constantly on the go, right? So they're always they're always busy. So the body needs to relax and be at ease to get pregnant. So when the body's busy all the time, women will go into fight or flight mode, and they have all of this sort of stress hormone pumping through their body, rather than the reproductive hormones that we need to get pregnant. So I work with a lot of women to return to a more easeful state in their body. I work with women around their belief. A lot of the time when women have experienced a lot of knockbacks or setbacks on their fertility journey, they get to the point, and it's fair enough, but they get to the point where they no longer believe that they can get pregnant.
Yeah.
And when you have a belief that you can't get pregnant, every cell in your body is listening to that belief, and eventually your body will start responding to that belief. And that's really shit, because it's just a shitty belief that you have that's not true, right? And it can affect everything that your body does. So I work with women around belief and instilling hope again in them. And I also work with them around the emotions that they've experienced in the journey to date, because whether it be IVF or the natural way of trying to get pregnant, it's a bumpy road for a lot of women, and there's a lot of emotions that can come up that don't feel very nice. So working with them around that and helping them to process that as well.
I have heard very concerning things from a lot of women who are experiencing infertility, and it is sort of like, oh, what's wrong with my body? What's wrong with me? Yeah, having that kind of belief, you're right, it's not conducive. If you've got that belief, it's going to be really hard to kind of get where you want to go. And so many women say it and they're like, yeah, it's rubbish, but then they're still trying. So they obviously don't fully believe it. Otherwise they wouldn't be trying,
So they still want it, but they don't deeply believe that they can get it. So, when they get that setback again, or that phone call, if it's IVF, it's like, well, it's reinforcement. Of course I'm not pregnant again, type thing. And it's like, it just gets that belief stronger that they're not going to get pregnant. And it's a vicious cycle of just going round and round of not getting pregnant.
Pretty much. Yeah. I only experienced 2 losses only.
Only.
And it is like that, they're like, oh, 3 losses and you get all the testing, but 2, none for you.
Right. None for
But
you.
yeah, but yeah, it is a very sort of dark place that you sort of
Mm,
get into, and you kind of feel stuck a lot of the time. And
definitely.
I know a lot of women have been going through sort of being pregnant and not being pregnant for many, many years, and that can sort of make it obviously even harder. Do
Mm.
you work with clients like that who have been going through these things for many years, and do you see successes in sort of healing and them just sort of being okay and like being able to, get on with what they want to do?
Definitely. So I mean, I have, I don't take the credit for women getting pregnant, but there's a couple of women that, that I've worked with that there was one that was 10 years, 10 cycles. So not 10 years, 10 cycles of IVF. And then she's currently pregnant at the moment. And another one who was 5 cycles, and they were at the point where they were no longer believing that they could get pregnant, but, um, they still wanted to keep going. So, and then another one with the 5 cycles, she's got a baby now, her first baby. And it's a beautiful thing to see these women who've now, either pregnant or have got a child already. But also it's helping women get to the point where no matter what, they're going to be okay, because there's no guarantees in life. There's no guarantees that, any of us can or will get pregnant, but getting to the point where no matter what, you still have the belief if that's what you want, but you're also okay to keep going, no matter what happens in your future, like in your future. Yeah. So I definitely work with a lot of women, particularly in the IVF process, because it is such a rigid sort of process that, it really affects women when they're going through that process emotionally and mentally.
With IVF, there's so many natural things that you can't necessarily do. Like you shouldn't take herbs because that can sometimes affect the hormones.
Yep.
So if you're doing IVF, what do you recommend? From your experience and your sort of services, like what do you recommend for women, who are struggling, like emotionally or physically, and just need that healing, that kind of thing to kind of push them through so they can make it to the end of that cycle and hopefully have a baby at the end.
Yeah, it's definitely around getting support. So a lot of the IVF clinics do have an in-house counselor or similar that they offer. I've heard all different stories about the counselors, that they're good, but it just gets to a point where they're just sort of talking about the same thing all the time. So if that's no longer for you, just find someone else that is there to support you. And that can be, someone like me who offers Reiki or hypnotherapy, but it can be someone else as well. Find, someone that can support you emotionally, even if it's a friend, just to be able to talk through what you're experiencing, because that's a lot of women also, I find, keep their experience to themselves. So it's like they've bottled it all up and have, if they experience a loss, it's like they can't talk to anyone because they haven't told anyone they're going through the IVF process or, trying to get pregnant process. And you need support. You need to have someone there for you. And, if it's your partner, that's amazing. But don't forget he or she is going through that as well. So sometimes you need someone else as well to come in, and whoever that is, just make sure they're the right person for you.
And often you need like a stranger, like
Yeah.
to just here, have that.
Dump it.
Then you don't see that person, until you want to again. So it's like
Definitely.
emotional dump. Here you go. You take that, and I'll go
That's
home
right.
and be fine, sort of.
And that's what therapists or healers or whatever like whoever, that's what they're there for, right? And that's definitely. But even if it's not someone, like some women also say they don't want to talk about it anymore, they're done with talking about it, so go have some Reiki or go have a massage or go have something that makes you feel good in your body and just helps you de-stress for a little bit of time, and get out of the thinking sort of about it, because anything you can do to de-stress and just be present in the moment and relax is going to help the process anyway, no matter what your process looks like.
Yeah, because I think some women, they're in that kind of in between stage where they're like, I want to move, like I want to keep going, but then am I dishonoring the child I lost? Like, am I doing a wrong here? Because
Yes.
I still love that child, I still miss that child, but am I allowed to kind of keep going? And I
Yeah.
think that can sometimes be an issue. Um, but I mean, I suppose like Reiki and like even down to the hypnotherapy can kind of help you get to that kind of, you can move and
Mm.
still love your baby and still miss your baby. You don't have to stay in one
Of
spot.
course. Yeah, definitely. And I know that is a huge tussle for a lot of women, particularly, you know, I've worked with women who have still birth babies as well. And it's like, well, you know, when is it okay for me to actually try again and not, you know, forget about, you know, that baby, my baby. And it's not that you ever forget, obviously, like they're always going to be part of you or with you, however you like to remember them. It's just that, you know, that baby would probably want you to be happy as well. And it's about, you know, whenever you feel ready, I think is the right time. It's never about forgetting. It's just about you know, being able to continue on in your life journey while still remembering and having them, you know, a part of your life, however that looks. It's very different for each woman.
So many women are like, oh, I should be over it by now.
Mm.
Not just them saying it, sometimes it's other people saying it, but then so yeah, it's almost like it kind of plays an effect, like society, you know, saying it's okay, like
Yes.
you should be fine now, like it wasn't really a baby, so you're all good. But then you're like, oh, like
Oh,
it was, and I feel it, and I'm so sad.
I,
But I think, yeah,
I hate when people say that. It
yeah, it's a
wasn't
loss.
really a baby.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's like it's a loss, and like any loss, anyone who dies in your life, you're gonna keep that, and you won't forget your baby, you won't forget that loss. And I think that's important to just tell every woman who's watching and any woman who's listening, you will not forget your baby
No,
because it was your
definitely
baby.
not. And I think with, you know, particularly with miscarriage in those early stages, when women are getting told that, you know, it wasn't really a baby, you know, it wasn't even 12 weeks or whenever women get told that it's not really a baby, it's like it was. And the moment that you find out that you are pregnant, you know, your mind instantly is beginning to either plan for the future or see a different future. And it will, you know, that baby you know, if you're going down that path, will be a part of that future from the moment you find out. So
Exactly.
it is, you know, no matter what beliefs are, it is very much a real baby. It's there. So and you are allowed, and this is the thing I have to often remind women, is you are allowed to grieve that baby, even if it was a week or two and you've just found out, you know, and then miscarriage. You're allowed to grieve that baby as long as you need. There is no, you know, no set amount of time that someone can say that you're allowed to grieve for. It's a lifelong process often, and obviously it gets easier over time, but it's a lifelong thing that you'll sort of carry with you no matter what your experience is in that pregnancy loss.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
was in a store over Christmas and I cried, and the lady behind the counter said, you know, you're right. And I just blurted at her and said, you know, I've just lost two babies, and one of them would have been born around Christmas, and I just walked past all the baby Christmas stuff.
Mm.
And she sort of looked at me and she went, I lost a baby too, and it
Mm.
gets easier.
Yeah,
And I just thought, that's so lovely. And I wouldn't have had that moment had I not said something. And I
definitely.
think a lot of us miss that moment because we don't say like what
Mm.
we're feeling. And she was just like, it's okay. You know, it
Yeah.
was just so nice. And she said, you know, I've gone through it. Yeah, I went through it 20 years ago. And, you know, you don't forget, but
Mm.
you still can function. Like it gets easier. And that I think is really powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's this space that you're creating. You know, this is beautiful for women to be able to, you know, recognize that they're not alone in what they're experiencing, and every emotion and every feeling or thought that they're having is very normal. And it's, you know, I think what you're doing is amazing. So thank
Thank
you.
you. I hope so. I know when I entered this space, I was bewildered. I didn't realize how much was going on. And I didn't really look at the space for a good few months after I'd lost my first baby, because I just was like, I can't, like, I don't want to look. I don't
Yeah.
want to acknowledge so much. I was already feeling really depressed and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going in there. And then I started to look, and there was just so many fantastic women, and women like yourself as well, who work in the space and help women in the space. And it was just so amazing to me to see this community of women just coming together and trying to strengthen each other and creating this sort of camaraderie. Even though none of us want to be in this club, we're in this club. I really hope you enjoyed the first part of this podcast. If you'd like to listen to the rest, please visit thejoyofsunflowers.com. Please note that all speakers, including experts and professionals, express information, views, and opinions that should not be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any medical conditions. If you have a medical issue, please consult a qualified professional. Speakers voice their own views, opinions, and conclusions, and they may not reflect the views, opinions, and conclusions of other speakers. Ella Rose, The Joy of Sunflowers, and its sponsors may not endorse all or any of the views, opinions, or conclusions expressed.